The music in the club is deafening. Minho is bored. He looks around the room, and his gaze is caught by one girl. She's dancing as if there's no one else around. Joyfully, freely with a smile. Her energy is overflowing. He's immediately intrigued. He pushes through the crowd and finds himself next to her. She opens her eyes, sees him, and isn't afraid. A sly smile appears on her face. "Oh, hi," she says, still keeping her rhythm. "Just a heads up, I'm like really strong coffee. Try it once, and everything else will seem like water." Minho raises an eyebrow. "What a start. Seriously?" he asks, trying to cut through the music. "What's so special about you?" "That's it," she laughs. "I can do ordinary things in an unusual way. You'll definitely never be bored with me. But I'm worth my weight in gold, not in money, in your peace of mind. After I'm gone, you'll be yawning over others. Ready to take a chance?" Minho's jaw dropped slightly at these words. The audacity was unbelievable, but it was also funny. He was tired of people being afraid of him. And this girl was flirting with him like an equal. "Well," he smiles too. "I like strong coffee. Let's go to my place and test your theory. My car is right outside." He doesn't wait, turns around, and walks away. His heart beats a little faster, not from excitement, but from excitement. He glances over his shoulder. She stands with her head slightly bowed, as if solving a difficult problem. Then she shrugs, as if to say, "Why not?" and follows him. He opens the car door for her. She jumps in as if getting into a taxi. "Let's go," she says. "Just no boring music on the way, okay?" Minho sits down next to me. He can't stop smiling. This evening is definitely not going to go according to plan. And that's great. Minho opens the door to his penthouse. Inside it smells of cleanliness and expensive wood. "Not bad," Layla said, looking around the spacious living room. "It's just too empty, like no one lives here." "I'm alive," he says, approaching the minibar. "Wine? Yes, I can, but only if you drink with me, and not just watch." He grins and pours 2 glasses of light wine. They sit down on the wide sofa. She kicks off her shoes and settles into a more comfortable position, curling up. "So, Mr. Important," says Layla, sipping her wine, "tell me something ordinary. Like, do you like dogs?" "Dogs?" Minho chuckles. "No, they make a lot of noise." "And cats?" "Also, they sleep a lot." "You're boring," she laughs. "I had a cat. He stole the neighbor's socks." They talk about nonsense, about the bad weather, about a stupid TV commercial, about the taste of wine. He catches himself thinking that he's at ease, that he's not thinking about the right words. She asks silly questions and laughs when he jokes. Her laughter is loud and infectious. "I see you're all tense here," she says later, pointing to his shoulders. "Do you carry the whole world on them?" "Something like that," he replies. "It's useless. The world keeps spinning on its own anyway. Come here." He hesitates for a moment, then turns his back to her. Her fingers press into his shoulders, gently at first, then harder. She kneads the hardened muscles. "Oh," he blurts out. A warmth spreads through his shoulders. "Shut up," she commands. "You're a tough nut to crack." He closes his eyes. Her hands do something incredible. The tension melts away. Then her fingers begin to move differently, slower. They glide down his neck, draw circles on his back. Minho's breathing deepens. This is no longer just a massage. He suddenly turns and catches her hands. She looks at him, and her smile changes. Not mischievous, but soft. He reaches out and touches her cheek. Her skin is warm. She tilts her head, her eyes darkening. Then they kiss. It happens naturally. He doesn't remember who started it. Her lips are soft, and there's wine and something else, sweet, in the kiss. She puts her hand on the back of his head, her fingers tangling in his hair. He stands up without breaking the kiss and lifts her into his arms. She wraps her legs around him and laughs against his lips. The bedroom is almost dark. He turns on only the sconce by the bed. The light is soft, yellow. They take their time. She unbuttons his shirt, her palms sliding over his chest. Each touch seems to leave a light trace on his skin. He helps her take off her dress. It falls silently. She's right. She can do things others can't. But it's not a trick. She's simply completely present. It seems she's giving him all her attention, all her energy. When she touches him, he feels it not just with his skin, but with his whole body. When she whispers something, he hears only her voice. Everything else, the noise of the city outside, his phone in the other room, thoughts of work, dissolves. They talk, whispering, laughing, then they fall silent. The silence between them is not awkward, but calm. He watches the light play on her skin, memorizes the arch of her eyebrow, the mole on her shoulder, the way she bites her lip when she thinks. Later, when she falls asleep with her head on his chest, he lies there and listens to her even breathing. He can't sleep. He's afraid that if he does, this magic will disappear. He just lies there and feels her warmth, and that warmth fills everything inside him. He finally falls into a deep, dreamless sleep. Morning. A ray of sunlight falls directly on his face. Minho winces and opens his eyes. The first thing he sees is her sleeping face. Her lips are slightly parted, her eyelashes resting on her cheeks. One arm is thrown behind her head. She looks peaceful and very simple, as if she has always slept here. And at that moment, a thought arises in his head. Not even a thought, but knowledge, clear and firm. He doesn't want this morning to end. He wants it to repeat itself. Tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, always. She stirs, wrinkles her nose, and slowly opens her eyes, focuses on him. She smiles sleepily. Morning, she says hoarsely. Yes, he says, not looking away. She stretches, then looks at him. Her smile fades when she notices his expression. He's not smiling. His gaze is serious, almost stern. Is something wrong? She asks, raising herself up on her elbow. Layla, I'm listening. Stay, don't go. Never. She blinks, not understanding. Marry me, he says clearly. Be my wife. Silence. She freezes. Her eyes grow wide with utter bewilderment. She looks at him as if he's spoken an unfamiliar language. Are you kidding? She finally manages to say. No, not at all. She leans back against the pillows and gives a short, nervous laugh. Oh my God, you actually said that. She runs a hand over her face. Listen, I explained everything right away at the club. I'm like a strong blow. Afterward, the world seems different. But this isn't an invitation for life, you understand? It's just a fact. She throws off the blanket and gets out of bed, starting to look for her clothes. It was a wonderful night. Truly, one of the best. But that's where it ends. I'm leaving, and we won't cross paths again. That's how it was meant to be. She finds her dress and quickly pulls it on. Her movements are abrupt. She doesn't look at him. I'm packing my things and leaving. Forget me. Or don't forget me if you can't. But that's your problem. She approaches the door, places her hand on the handle, and only then does she turn around to take one last look at him. There is no anger in her eyes. There is something akin to regret and weariness. Bye, Minho. Take care of your stone shoulders. She leaves, softly closing the door. He lies there, staring at the ceiling. The room smells of her, and his proposal hangs in the air, unaccepted. The door closes behind Layla with a soft click. The sound hits Minho like a gunshot. He jumps out of bed, pulling up his pants as he goes, and runs out into the hallway. She's almost to the elevator, presses the button. Stop! His voice booms in the empty space. Layla turns around, her gaze calm, even tired. The elevator arrives. The doors open. I've said everything I wanted to, she says, stepping inside. He takes 3 long steps and grabs her arm above the elbow. Hard. Not to hurt, but to stop. You don't understand, he says quietly, but so that each word is pronounced. I'm not asking. I'm telling you how it will be. She looks at his hand, then at his face. A spark of irritation flashes in her eyes. Let go! No, you're leaving now. But if I find you in this city, and I will, we'll go straight to the registry office. No talking. Do you understand? She tugs at his hand, but he doesn't let go. The elevator beeps. The door's trying to close. Are you crazy? She hisses. Perhaps, but it's your problem now. Do we have a deal? She rolls her eyes. She sees he's not joking. She sees the dull, animalistic determination in his gaze. She's sick of it. Okay, we've got a deal, damn it. You find me and we'll get married. Happy? Now let me go! He slowly unclenches his fingers. She immediately jumps back into the elevator car. See you later, Layla, he says, and the doors close, hiding her angry face. Minho stands in the hallway, barefoot and shirtless. His chest pounds. He believes his promise. He will find her. Layla goes outside and laughs, quietly, to herself. What a psycho. Of course he won't find her. He has more important things to do than chase a random girl from the club. In a couple of days, he'll even forget her name. She walks to the metro, waving her purse. A great night. Interesting. But it's over. The next morning, Minho wakes up alone. The sun is shining just as brightly, but the house is empty. He goes to the kitchen and makes coffee. The coffee tastes bitter and tasteless. He sits down, but can't eat. He stares at the empty chair across from him. The thought of not seeing her today cuts like a knife. It's not just regret. It's a physical feeling, as if something important has been taken from him, a part of himself he didn't know he had while she was here. Without her, everything seems gray and unnecessary. Even the air feels different. He's angry at himself. What kind of weakness is this? He's Jung, Minho. He doesn't depend on anyone. But that thought doesn't help. He gets up and starts pacing the house like a caged animal. The obsession begins with small details. He's taking a shower and suddenly clearly remembers the water trickling down her shoulders. The shampoo in the bathroom now smells of her. He opens the closet to put on a shirt and sees a barely noticeable silver sparkle from her dress on the floor. He picks it up and holds it in his palm. He can't work. The numbers on the monitor are blurring. Instead, he sees her laughing, head thrown back, her lips biting as she listened to him, her eyes sparkling in the dim light of the bedroom. He goes into the bedroom and just stands there. The sheets are still rumpled. He lies down on her side and buries his face in the pillow. There's still a faint scent of her there. Perfume, perhaps? No, something else. Just her scent. He inhales it and feels like he's going crazy. Every detail haunts him. The shape of her ears. The sound of her voice when she said, "You're boring." The feel of her fingers in his hair. These aren't memories. These are ghosts that live in the house with him. They crowd out everything else. By evening, his anger reaches its limit. He no longer yearns. He's furious. Some girl has made him hers in one night. She's upended his life, his thoughts, his peace. She traded him for a night, took his strength and peace, and simply left. Like a thief, like a fraud. He won't allow it. No one has that kind of power over him. He emerges from the bedroom, his face a stony mask. All the softness, all the confusion, burned away by anger. He goes down to the study, sits down at the desk, and presses a button on the phone. A minute later, two of his men walk through the door. They see his expression and freeze at attention. "The girl who was here last night," Minho says in a flat, colorless voice. "Layla, find out everything. Where she lives, what she does, who she hangs out with. You have 24 hours. Show me more hour." "Yes, boss," the older man nods. "And when you find her," Minho continues, looking out the window at the darkening city, "don't touch her. Don't scare her. Report to me. I'll decide what to do with her next." The people bow and leave. Minho turns his chair toward the window. In the reflection in the glass, he sees his face, cold, determined, and somewhere deep in his eyes, an obsession he no longer tries to hide, even from himself. He found a way out of his powerlessness. Action. He would regain control. He would find her, and this time, she would not go anywhere. His men are working quickly. They're checking the security footage from the club and finding the taxi she left in. They're also reviewing the cameras along her route. She got off not at her home, but at the metro station, and got lost in the crowd. This suggests she's being cautious, but discretion doesn't mean invisibility. They check her face against databases. Nothing. So no criminal record. No official employment. Then they search social media. They search through security camera photos, and they find her. She has an account, an abandoned one, with a couple of old photos, but it's enough. They use the account to find a phone number. They use the number to find cell towers. They identify the area, an old neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, cheap high-rises. Minho receives the report 18 hours later. He's sitting in his office when a text message arrives with an address. He looks at his phone screen. A street, a building, just a dot on the map, and his heart gives a heavy, dull thump. He stands up. "Wait for my signal," he texts back. Layla returns home late in the evening. She's in a good mood. She's done her grocery shopping and plans to finally get some rest. She has money from her last job in her pocket. She enters the entrance to her building. The elevator, as always, is broken. She starts climbing the stairs. On the second landing, in the darkness, two men in dark clothes are waiting for her. They don't look like bandits. They look like empty space, which is even scarier. One of them takes a step forward. "Layla?" Her insides freeze. She understands immediately. "No, you're mistaken," she tries to say, retreating toward the exit. But the second man is already there. They act silently and professionally. No one shouts or hits her. One holds her hands tightly. The other carefully places a strip of wide tape over her mouth. He does it almost politely. Then he places a soft, dark cloth bag over her head. The lights go out. She tries to break free, but her hands are already bound behind her back with something soft but incredibly strong. They grab her by the arms and practically carry her down the stairs. She hears the front door open and smells the night air. Then they lift her into the back seat of a car. The doors close. The car starts to move. Her heart is pounding somewhere in her throat. Fear is sour and thick. She thinks about Minho. It's him, his promise. "I'll find you." He wasn't kidding. And now she's in complete, utter trouble. The car drives for a long time. Then it stops. She's taken out, driven somewhere. The surface beneath her feet changes. Asphalt, then concrete, then steps down. The air becomes cool, smelling of dampness, dust, and metal. They seat her on a chair. Her hands are tied to the backrest, her legs to the legs. Only then do they remove the bag from her head. She blinks in the bright light of a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. It's a basement, concrete walls, no windows, a table, a couple of chairs. She's alone. She twitches, but the ropes prevent her from moving. The tape on her lips makes it hard to breathe. She makes a dull sound. 20 minutes later, she hears footsteps. Heavy, measured, the footsteps of the man who is in charge here. The door opens. Minho enters. He's wearing a dark suit and a white shirt without a tie. He looks like he's there for a business meeting. Only his expression isn't businesslike. It's cold, distant, with a hint of triumph in the corners of his eyes. He closes the door behind him. His gaze slowly glides over her bound hands, the tape, her disheveled hair, her eyes filled with rage and fear. He steps closer and stops 2 steps away. Silence. studying her. Then he slowly leans down and carefully, by the corner, tears the tape from her lips. It hurts. She winces but doesn't scream. She speaks immediately. Her voice is hoarse but full of hatred. "Well, congratulations, hero. You found it. You tied up the girl. Feeling powerful?" Minho doesn't react to the barbs. He looks at her with the same intense, unwavering gaze. "I told you I'd find you. So what now? Kill me?" She tries to sound brazen, but her voice trembles. He frowns, as if the question is stupid. "No, I brought you here to talk, without your running away, without your jokes. Now you will listen?" Minho slowly walks around her chair, his footsteps echoing in the concrete basement. "I'm tired of playing your games, Layla. I'll make the rules from now on. There are only two." He stops in front of her, looking into her eyes. "First, you stay with me. Live in my house. Forever. Second, you stop lying, cheating, and trying to run away." He pauses, letting the words sink in. "This isn't an hour. It's a fact. If you accept these rules, you'll have everything. Clothes, money, attention, everything you want. If you don't," he makes a slight gesture with his hand, looking around the basement. "You'll stay here, in this chair, for as long as it takes for you to accept them. I have many such rooms. And plenty of time." Layla looks at him, and the fury in her eyes gradually gives way to cold calculation. She sees he's not bluffing. He's capable of keeping her here for a long time. "I accept," she says finally, the words coming with difficulty. "But I have conditions too." Minho tilts his head slightly, curious. "What other conditions?" "You're in no position to bargain. I'm in the perfect position to bargain, because you don't want to keep a broken doll here. You want me alive, the one from the club. Otherwise, what's the point of all this?" She can see by the slight tension in his jaw that she's hit the nail on the head. "My conditions are simple. A private room in your house. Only I have the key. A month. For a whole month, you don't enter there without my permission. And you don't touch me. No touching. We simply live under the same roof. No conversations, unless they're about business. Without those looks of yours. A month to stop being your prey in the basement and start being a guest, or a prisoner, but with rights. Otherwise, no. This basement is better." She speaks clearly, looking him straight in the eye. She's bluffing, of course. The basement is her worst nightmare, but she hopes he wants more than just a body. His obsession is her only trump card. Minho is silent for a long moment, studying her. He doesn't see fear in her, but a challenge, and it infuriates him and attracts him at the same time. He knows she's right. He doesn't need a broken girl in a basement. He needs her specifically, defiant, alive, the one. But he hates the terms. "A month is too long," he says through clenched teeth. 3 weeks? She counters quickly, sensing weakness. 2 weeks, and your room will be under 24/7 surveillance, and you will not leave the house without me or my people. Surveillance? So no privacy. You will have privacy, but the security is mine. A video camera in the hallway opposite your door. And one of my people will be on this floor at all times. That's not up for discussion, and 2 weeks is my final say. Accept it? Layla looks at him. 2 weeks not of freedom, but of respite. A chance to come up with a plan, or to realize there isn't one. She nods slowly. "I accept. 2 weeks. Your rules and my conditions. Okay?" Minho takes a step back and takes out his phone. He says briefly and clearly, "That's it. Come in." The door opens. The same 2 men enter. Minho nods towards Layla. "Release her. Take her to the house. Give her the blue room on the 3rd floor. The key is hers alone. Set up a camera in the hallway. One of you will be on duty on this floor at all times. She is not to leave the house without my express permission. Understood?" "Yes, boss." One of the men quickly cuts the ropes. Layla rubs her wrists, where red marks remain. She stands, barely able to stand from the strain. Minho comes close to her, but doesn't touch. 2 weeks, Layla. Starts right now. Don't disappoint me." He turns and walks away without looking back. His steps fade away. Layla stands in the middle of the basement, his men waiting at the door. "We'll show you out, ma'am," one of them says indifferently. She realizes she's just traded one form of captivity for another, more comfortable, but no less secure. And she has only 14 days to figure out what to do next. She takes the first step toward the exit, feeling 2 expressionless eyes watching her. Her new life, full of rules and surveillance, has begun. They bring her to the same house. But now everything looks different. No longer a place for a nighttime adventure, but a beautiful prison. The man silently points her to a door on the 3rd floor, the blue room. Inside, it's spacious, cozy, and very quiet. On the bed are new clothes, her size. Everything has been thought out. She locks the door from the inside. But a minute later, She hears quiet footsteps in the hallway. The guard is already on duty. She goes to the window. It doesn't open. Down below in the garden, another guard is pacing slowly. Escape is impossible. She lies down on the bed and stares at the ceiling. 2 weeks. What can she do in 2 weeks? The morning begins with a quiet knock on the door. Breakfast is served, miss. She dresses and goes downstairs. Minho is already sitting at the dining room table. He's reading something on his tablet, but his gaze is distant. She sits down opposite him. A vase of flowers stands between them. The silence is oppressive, broken only by the clink of spoons. She eats an omelet. He drinks coffee. He doesn't look at her. She tries not to look either. I wasn't sleeping, he says suddenly. Without looking up from his cup, Layla stops. Is it because of the noise in the hallway? You can tell your man to walk more quietly. Not because of the noise. He puts the tablet down and finally looks at her. His face is tired. I wasn't sleeping because I couldn't stop thinking. About that night. About you. About what you did. She puts her fork down carefully. I didn't do anything. We just spent the night together. These things happen. No. These things don't happen to me. His voice hardens. You did something. Said something. Used something. I can't eat, sleep, or work. All I can do is remember details. The smell in the bedroom. Your laughter. This isn't normal. This doesn't happen. What was that, Layla? He says this not as an accusation, but almost as an admission of weakness. He truly doesn't understand. And in this confusion, from the most powerful man she knew, there was a strange truth. Layla pushes her plate away. She looks at his tense face and realizes it's time for a partial truth, one that might give her at least some power. Okay, she sighs. You're right. I did something, but it wasn't me. It was chemistry. She takes a sip of water, gathering her thoughts. Minho doesn't move, frozen like a statue. His gaze is fixed on her. I have a perfume, a special one. It's made to order in a single lab. They add synthetic pheromones, substances that influence perception, emotions. It doesn't work on everyone, but it works on most. She speaks evenly, as if reading instructions. It's not a love potion. It's just an enhancer. If someone is attracted to you in general, the perfume makes that attraction 100 times stronger. It heightens all sensations. It links memories of you to feelings of euphoria. Minho slowly leans back in his chair, his face expressionless. Go on. That's my plan. My hook, Layla continues. I pick out a man at the club, I approach him or wait for him to approach me, and I say that same phrase, after me. Everyone else will be a waste of time. It's a challenge. It plays on men's egos. They think it's a game, but I know it's a pure chemical experiment. She stands up and begins to pace slowly around the dining room, not looking at him. I agree to go to his place. Evening, wine, conversation. I use perfume sparingly. 1 spray in the morning. It lasts until evening. At the right moment, I become the most attentive, the most interesting, the most desirable version of myself, and the perfume does its job. It cements this image in his brain at the most primitive animal level. The night passes beautifully. He's happy. He falls asleep, confident he's found a miracle. Now her voice becomes completely flat, as if she's reporting on the work done. And I don't sleep. I wait until he's fast asleep. Then I get up and gather all his valuables. Cash, watches, jewelry. Sometimes I use his card if I know the PIN. Then I quietly leave and disappear. And he wakes up alone, with an empty wallet and the feeling that he's lost the most amazing woman in the world. He doesn't even always go to the police. He's too ashamed to admit that he was tricked like that, or he just hopes that I'll come back. And I'm already looking for the next one. Minho is silent for a long time. The only sound in the dining room is the ticking of the large clock on the wall. And with me, he finally says, were you planning on doing the same thing? Layla stops and looks at him. For the first time in this conversation, something like weary recognition appears in her eyes. Yes, of course. You were the perfect target. Rich, confident, used to buying everyone. Those are the ones who bite the fastest. But with you, the plan went wrong. She returns to the table, but doesn't sit down. First of all, your house is full of cameras and people. My clients' houses are usually quiet and empty at night, but you even had someone walking in the hallways. Secondly, I was nervous, more than usual, because you weren't just a rich guy. You were dangerous. I could feel it. And in the bedroom, when I tried to spray perfume discreetly on your neck, I missed. Almost the entire bottle spilled onto the carpet by the bed. She sees his gaze sharpen for a second. You breathed this air all night and all the next. All day. The concentration was enormous. I didn't expect such an effect. My usual words about after me, there will be no need for others, became literally true for you, reinforced by the chemical burn of your brain. Your obsession isn't me. It's a side effect of a botched experiment. You were exposed to a tenfold dose of something that others reacted to with only mild affection for a couple of days. She finally sits up and looks him straight in the eyes. You asked what I did to you. Here's the answer. I didn't do any magic. I just spilled expensive perfume on your carpet, and your brain made the meaning of its entire life out of it. You don't need me. You need to air out the bedroom and see a good doctor. All your feelings are phantom pains, a chemical deception, and my deception to boot, she finishes. The silence in the dining room becomes deafening. Minho doesn't move. He digests every word. His face gradually changes. The bewilderment and confusion disappear. It becomes cold and smooth like ice. Something new lights up in his eyes. Not pain, not longing, but a clear, chilling understanding. And with it, a new, even more dangerous thought. Minho sits perfectly still. He's heard a lot in his life. Threats, flattery, lies. But this is a first. Perfume? Pheromones? A lab? It sounds like the stuff of a bad TV show. But looking at her tired, sincere face, he realizes she's not lying. At least not about this. Everything inside him is crumbling. All that agonizing longing, that unbearable need for her that kept him from breathing, turns out to be a product of chemistry. A spilled bottle. He wasn't obsessed with a unique woman. He was the victim of a well-executed fraud with a scientific twist. First comes emptiness. Then comes an icy wave of shame and humiliation. He, Chan Minho, the ruler of entire city districts, was duped like a simpleton because of some perfume. But almost immediately after the shame comes rage. Pure, concentrated, not at her, at himself for his weakness, and at her for daring to do this, and for daring to tell him this, shattering his illusions. He slowly looks up. His eyes are no longer filled with deep melancholy, but flat, shining with cold calculation. So everything I felt was fake, he says quietly, his voice strangely calm. Not quite, Layla says carefully. The basis was, you wouldn't have sought me out if I were repulsive to you. The chemistry just intensified everything to the point of madness. Too much. Minho nods, as if agreeing with the technical specifications. The gears are already clicking in his head. Pheromones, if they exist, they can be bought. If they can be bought, they can be used. Where do you get them? He asks without preamble. Layla tenses. Why do you need them? Just curious. You won't be using them now, will you? So the information is useless. Where? She shrugs, sensing a catch but not seeing it. The contacts are in the phone. Your people took the phone. There's a guy named Leo there. He's a chemist. He makes things to order. Minho mentally ticks off a box. A plan is born instantly, coherent and elegant in its cruelty. Okay, he suddenly stands up. Thank you for your honesty. That explains a lot. He begins to pace slowly around the room, as if thinking out loud. You're right. Keeping you here because of a chemical error is stupid. It's beneath my dignity. He stops and looks at her. There's no longer the same obsession in his gaze. There's something like tired disappointment. It's a game, but he plays it brilliantly. Our 2 weeks. I don't think they're necessary anymore. You're free, Layla. She freezes, not believing her ears. What? I said, you're free. You can pack your things and leave. Today. Now. Layla looks at him, searching for a trick in his eyes, but she sees only tired emptiness. A man who just learned that his great love was a science experiment, and he no longer cares. Just leave? She asks. Yes. I'll have you taken wherever you want. My only advice is to change cities, so that this never happens again. To me, or to anyone else. He says this like a caring but tired boss, giving final instructions to an unfortunate intern. He goes to the intercom and presses a button. Get the car ready. Miss Layla is leaving today. And remove the duty officer from the 3rd floor. He's no longer needed. Layla stands motionless. Freedom, so sudden, so unlike him. But he looks genuinely broken by the truth, and logic says, why should he keep her now? She was a mistake, a flawed specimen. He's erasing her from his life like damaged goods. Okay, she finally says, trying to sound confident. I'll pack. Take your time. Have a quiet breakfast. The car will be waiting when you're ready. He nods to her and walks out of the dining room, leaving her alone. His footsteps fade. Layla slowly sinks into a chair. Her head is spinning. He lets go of her. Because he learned the truth. It's the only logical explanation. She doesn't notice that Minho stops as he steps out into the hallway. His face transforms. No fatigue, only a cold, sharp determination. He takes out his phone and quickly dials a number. Leo, the chemist, we need to find him in half an hour and order from him the same thing he made for Layla. The strongest concentration. Price doesn't matter. We need it by this evening. He hangs up. The corner of his lips is barely touched by a smile. The illusion of freedom has been created for her. Now he begins his game. A game in which the roles are reversed. Now he will be the fisherman, and she will be the one irresistibly drawn to the hook. Minho wastes no time. 2 hours after speaking with Layla, his men find Leo. The chemist works in a clandestine laboratory on the outskirts. When visitors come to him, he initially tries to deny it, but the sight of the visitors changes his mind. Minho speaks to him over a secure video link. I need the same perfume you made for Layla, he says without preamble. The highest concentration. The exact same formula. Leo, a small, nervous man with glasses, swallows. It's complicated. I need components. Time. You have 4 hours. You can buy the components with this card. The price for your work will be 10 times higher than usual. If you do it well, we might even let you go later. Threats and generosity work without fail. Leo agrees. Minho doesn't just wait. He orders one of the young guards brought in, the one who was guarding Layla's door. The guy stands at attention. Relax, Minho says. This is an experiment. When Leo delivers a small, black, unmarked vial 4 hours later, Minho conducts a test. He asks the guard to step into the hallway for a minute while he sprays a single spray into the office. Then he calls him back in. Stay here for 5 minutes. Tell me what you feel. After 3 minutes, the guard's pupils dilate. He begins breathing more rapidly. 4 minutes in, he involuntarily glances at the corner where Layla had been sitting during their first meeting in the office and runs his tongue over his lips. My head feels warm, boss, and some pleasant thoughts are swirling around. About a certain girl. Minho nods. Get out, and don't say a word to anyone. The guard leaves, staggering slightly. The weapon works perfectly. The bottle sits on Minho's desk. It looks like an ordinary perfume sample, but it's a trap. He touches the cold glass. Now he holds in his hands the cause of all his torment and the key to revenge. That evening, he invites Layla to dinner. It's formally a farewell. She's already packed a small bag. She looks wary, but the hope for imminent freedom is visible in her eyes. The table is set in the small dining room. The lighting is dim. The food simple. Layla sits down, trying to hold herself lightly. I told you to make your favorite, like you said the other night, Minho says, pouring her water. Truffle pasta. Thank you, she says, surprised by his memory. He sprays perfume on his wrist, doing it under the table, as if adjusting his cuff. The light, almost elusive scent of almond and something woody begins to slowly dissolve into the air. He does this before she can sit down really close. At first, nothing changes. They eat, talking about neutral things, where she'll go, what she'll do. She says she'll go south, get a change of scenery. He nods, pretending to listen. 15 minutes pass. Layla puts down her fork and suddenly looks at him differently. Her gaze loses some of its wariness, becomes a little softer. You know, it's actually beautiful here in the evening, she says unexpectedly, looking out the window at the city lights. I didn't have time to see it that time. You can stay another day to see it, he suggests, playing at condescension. No. She shakes her head, but with a slight smile. But thanks for the offer. She drinks water and looks at his hands, at the way he holds the knife. She suddenly says, but you probably had a difficult childhood. Such a character doesn't fall from the sky. Perhaps, he agrees cautiously. I felt sorry for you, you know, she continues, and her voice sounds thoughtful. This whole story, you just wanted the best. What's the best? He asks again. Well, yes, he caught her, brought her, offered her everything. In its own way, it's even romantic. Minho hides his surprise. The effect comes faster than he expected, and it's not driven by passion, but by intimacy. She feels sorry for him. She begins to understand him. That's even more interesting. She moves her chair a little closer to the table, and therefore closer to him. I keep thinking, maybe I shouldn't be so abrupt about everything, she says, playing with the edge of her napkin. Her gaze has become more absent-minded, warmer. You mean our agreement? He clarifies. Well, yes. 2 weeks, no touching. It sounded so strict. Maybe there could have been a different way? Slower. He sees her trying to shake off this state, shaking her head slightly, but her gaze returns to him again, softer, more interested. You said it yourself. I'm free. The rules don't apply anymore, he reminds her, adding fuel to the fire. Freedom, she drawls the word. It's not just about leaving. It can be about staying of your own free will, right? She looks at him, and there's no longer calculation or fear in her eyes. Something akin to genuine sympathy and a strange trust has appeared there. The spirits were doing their job, blurring boundaries, creating the illusion of a deep connection. And Layla, unsuspecting, was beginning to believe in this illusion. Minho silently watched as his trap began to slowly and inexorably close. Minho watches the change in her with a cold inner satisfaction. She talks about freedom of choice, but every word, every soft look is the result of precise chemical calculation. He decides to add fuel to the fire by playing a subtle game. You know what's the funniest thing? He says, pushing his plate away and looking at her with a slight, almost friendly smile. Before all this, I would have laughed at myself. Chan Minho, who sets rules like 2 weeks no touching. Sounds like the script for a bad melodrama. Layla listens, resting her head on her hand. Her posture is relaxed. I thought it was sweet, she says thoughtfully. In a way, a sign of character. Character? He chuckles. Or stupidity? You said a month without touching. I so important and intimidating, agreed to 2 weeks. We haggled, like at the market, for my own attention to myself. It's completely absurd when you think about it. He sees her brows draw together slightly. She tries to process his words, but her thoughts seem confused. The scent in the air, soft and persistent, does its work. I was scared then, she admits quietly, something she would never have done before. You were so overwhelming. And those rules gave me the illusion of control. Illusion, he repeats softly. That's the right word. Because I've always been in control, Layla. Always. I just let you think differently. For 2 weeks. He says this without challenge, rather with a slight sadness, as if it were a statement of fact. And therein lay the ultimate irony. He, who had kept her in the basement, was now playing the role of a wise man, regretting his own cruelty. And she, under the influence of pheromones, was ready to see depth and sincerity in this role. Who's in control now? She asks, and her voice betrays not a challenge, but genuine curiosity. She glances at his lips, then looks away, but returns to them a second later. Now, he pauses, reaching for a glass of water, deliberately slowing his movements. It's the same as always. Control belongs to the one with the power and the knowledge. And feelings are often just a deception. His words, he thinks, should have repelled her, but the opposite happens. Apparently, her brain interpreted the deception in her current state as something romantically tragic. She suddenly stands up, not abruptly, but slowly, as if in a trance. She goes to the window and looks out at the city, but her shoulders are tense. I'm hot, she says hoarsely. Open the window, he suggests, knowing it won't open. It's not helping. She turns to face him. Her face is flushed. Her breathing has quickened slightly. She doesn't look at him like he's a kidnapper or a victim of deception. She looks at him with such intensity that even Minho is momentarily speechless. There's a storm in her eyes, confusion, shame, and a growing, uncontrollable desire. I shouldn't want this, she blurts out, more to herself than to him. What? He asks quietly, staying where he is. All of this. You, this room, even these stupid rules of yours. It's wrong. She can't finish. It's as if she's struggling with herself, clenching her fists. She tries to remember who she is, what happened, why she's here. But the memories are lost in the thick fog that floats in her head. And at the center of this fog is him, his calm face, his voice, his hands on the table. Layla, he says, standing up but not coming closer. You said you were free. You can just leave. The car is waiting downstairs. It was the last straw. The suggestion to leave, made now when her whole being screamed the opposite, broke the last barriers. Fury flashed in her eyes, not at him, but at herself, at her own weakness. Shut up, she screams suddenly, her voice breaking. Don't tell me what to do! And she pounces on him, not to fight. It was a swift, uncontrollable movement, whether to hit him or to hug him. She couldn't tell. She crashes into him, grabs him by the shirt, and her lips find his in a kiss that was more like an attack. There was no tenderness or art in it, only raw, animal need. Minho loses his balance for a moment, his back hitting the table. He lets it happen. He doesn't respond immediately, letting her feel the absurdity and desperation of her actions. Then his arms rise and wrap around her, not to pull her in, but to stabilize her, to control her impulse. The kiss deepens, but he remains passive, an observer in his own experiment. She rips his shirt, buttons flying off. Her fingers dig into his skin. She mumbles something, apologizes, then kisses him again. She's completely lost control, and he finally takes the initiative to direct this chaos. He picks her up and carries her out of the dining room, not to her room, but to his bedroom, the very one where it all began. Everything happens quickly, passionately, almost silently. She doesn't laugh like she did then. She's focused, as if trying to find answers to all her questions through this physical connection. He moves methodically, precisely, observing her every reaction, how the chemistry he released into the world dictates her every movement, every breath. When it's over, a heavy silence falls over the room, broken only by their ragged breathing. Layla lies staring at the ceiling, as if trying to comprehend what just happened. Her expression is one of relief and emptiness. She turns to him, and something akin to tenderness and shame appears in her eyes. I don't know what came over me, she whispers. I know, Minho says calmly. He moves away from her, sits on the edge of the bed, and reaches for the nightstand. His movements are precise and emotionless. He takes the same small black bottle and places it on the blanket between them. It catches a reflection of the light. This? Layla asks hoarsely, not understanding. Your perfume, or rather an exact replica, the strongest concentration. It was delivered to me this afternoon. She slowly rises up on her elbow, looking from the bottle to his face. Understanding slowly, like ice, grows in her eyes. What did you do? The same thing you did. Only I didn't spill it on the carpet. He takes the bottle and sprays it lightly into the air. The same almond woody scent, but now it smells like betrayal to her. I sprayed it on myself before dinner. You breathed that air for almost 2 hours, while you were talking about freedom and how sorry you were for me. He sees her face turn white. Her eyes widen in horror. No! It's not even a word, but a groan. Yes, he says mercilessly. Everything you felt for the last hour, it wasn't you. It was the chemicals. Your own chemicals. You fell victim to your own hook. You wanted to leave, but you couldn't. You said you shouldn't want this, but you lashed out at me because your brain, your body, weren't yours. They were controlled by the formula in that bottle. Just like I was then. He puts the bottle back. You asked who has control. Now you know. The one with the knowledge and the power to use it. You fell into your own trap, Layla. And the funniest thing is, I couldn't even steal from you. There's nothing to take from you. He gets up and starts getting dressed. Calmly, as if after a business meeting. He doesn't look at her. Layla doesn't move. She sits, arms wrapped around herself, staring into space. His words echo in her mind. Couldn't rob you. Victim of your own hook. Everything you felt wasn't you. And suddenly, like a wave, a memory crashes over her. Not her feelings now, but the feelings of those men. That lawyer who cried this morning, begging her on the phone to come back, promising everything. That businessman who spent 3 days searching for her all over the city with a bouquet of flowers, looking like a lost child. She always thought they were simply weaklings, that they had fallen for her beauty and intelligence. She despised them for this weakness. Now she understood. It wasn't weakness. It was a complete loss of self. It was the feeling that your will, your thoughts, your deepest desires had been stolen and replaced. It was the terrible, humiliating realization that all your feelings had been fabricated in a laboratory. At first, she simply trembled, a small, rapid tremor, then a strangled sound. A cross between laughter and a sob escaped her throat. She clenched her chest even tighter, and then the tears began to flow, quiet, soundless, endless. They rolled down her cheeks and fell onto the sheets, leaving dark stains. She didn't cover her face. She simply cried, looking ahead, seeing not this room, but a series of faces, the faces of those she had left with an empty wallet and a broken, poisoned heart. She cried not from fear of Minho. She cried from shame, from the understanding of someone else's pain, which she finally felt, herself, and from the realization that justice, so cruel and ironic, had overtaken her in full. Minho, now fully dressed, stood in the doorway and looked at her. There was no triumph on his face. There was only a cold, complete emptiness. His revenge was complete. And now, with the poison out of his system and her illusions shattered, only 2 very lonely people remained in the room, and the bitter truth in a small black bottle. 3 months pass. Layla had disappeared. Not from the city. Minho knew she'd rented a small apartment on the other side of Seoul and found work as a waitress in a cheap cafe. His people, more out of habit, sent him a terse report once a week. Alive, working, not socializing, homework. He read them and deleted them. Interest died along with revenge. The feeling of emptiness left by that evening was gradually filled by routine. He became who he was again, a cold, efficient, slightly bored boss. The idea that her perfume was just chemicals became his shield. Everything he sensed was a lie. Therefore, there was nothing to feel. Layla lived like a robot. Work, home, cheap food from the supermarket. Laughter and levity had deserted her. She often woke up screaming at night, remembering the look on Minho's face as he placed the bottle on the bed. Or worse, the faces of the strangers she'd deceived, their eyes. She tried to justify herself. She was surviving. She had no choice. But now those excuses no longer worked. She knew the price of her chemistry. She was paying the bills. One evening after her shift, tired, she stopped by a 24-hour convenience store for a pack of noodles. The store was small, cramped, and lit by bright neon lights. She stood in a line of 2 people, staring at the floor, when she heard a muffled but familiar voice behind her. Yeah, I understand, but deadlines are tight. We need to decide this tomorrow. Layla froze. Her heart sank into her stomach. She turned around slowly, as if against her will. A meter away, Minho stood by the energy drink aisle, not in his impeccable suit, but in simple dark joggers, a black hoodie, and a cap pulled down low. He was staring at his phone, his face illuminated by the screen, looking tired and ordinary. Nearby, leaning against the refrigerator, stood his young security guard, the same one he'd used for the test. Nodded slightly in her direction, never taking his eyes off Minho. Minho ended the call, pocketed his phone, and raised his head. His gaze slid over the guard, then, following his silent signal, slowly moved to Layla. The meeting of their gazes was like an electric shock in the silence. There was no anger, no triumph, not even surprise in his eyes. First, there flashed simple recognition, then a momentary assessment of the situation, and finally, something like dull, tired annoyance. Fate, it seemed, had laughed at them, arranging this pitiful meeting among the shelves of cheap beer and chips. Layla couldn't move. She felt all the blood drain from her face. She clutched the noodles in her hand so tightly that the packaging cracked. Minho was the first to break the silent tension. He sighed, shook his head slightly, and took a step forward, not toward her, but toward the cash register, where a space had just opened up. "Let the lady through," he said quietly to the guard, not even looking at him. The security guard stepped aside, allowing Layla to proceed to the checkout. It wasn't politeness, but an order, a mechanical one. Layla, on autopilot, took a few steps and placed her noodles on the conveyor belt. The cashier, a teenager buried in his phone, lazily scanned the purchase. 3,801. Layla frantically reached into her old purse for her wallet. Her hands were shaking. She couldn't find it among the junk. She felt his presence behind her. He stood and waited, silently. "I can't find it," she muttered, mostly to herself, despair rising in her throat. Her entire pathetic new life, the penny pinching, the bullshit, was now laid out before him, and he saw, "There, in my pocket." His voice came from right behind her, calm, without emotion. She froze, then reached into her jacket pocket and, indeed, found a folding wallet. She paid, took the receipt, and the bag. She should have just left, quickly walked out, and disappeared into the night, but her legs wouldn't obey. She turned around. Minho placed a can of iced coffee and a chocolate bar on the conveyor belt. He didn't look at her. "Are you following me?" she breathed, her voice hoarse and muffled. He looked up at her for a moment. "If I'd been watching, we wouldn't have met here," he answered simply. "And you'd look different. It's a coincidence, Layla. An unfortunate one." The cashier scanned his purchases. Minho paid with his card without looking at him, and picked up the bag. "Let me go," she whispered, as he walked past her toward the exit. She didn't know why she said it. Maybe she was hoping he'd make some kind of promise. He stopped in the doorway without turning around. His silhouette was cut out black against the night city. "I let you go 3 months ago. You're not letting yourself go." And he left. The guard took one last quick glance at her and followed the boss. Layla emerged onto the street a minute later. His car was nowhere to be seen. They had vanished as quickly as they had appeared. She stood there, holding the bag, and the emptiness inside her howled even louder. He had been right. He had let her go, but the prison of shame and memories remained with her. The next meeting took place a week later, and this was no coincidence. At the manager's request, Layla stayed late after her shift to help with inventory. It was already past midnight. She exited through the back door into a narrow, dingy alley lined with dumpsters. The air was thick with the smell of old oil and mold. She'd just pulled out a cigarette, a new, nervous habit, when a man stepped out of the shadows, moving away from the wall. Not Minho, not his bodyguard. A stranger, tall, skinny, with an unpleasant grin and empty eyes. "Hey, sis," he croaked. "Would you like a light?" Layla instinctively recoiled, shoving the hand with the cigarette into her pocket. "No, come in." "Oh, how unfriendly." He took a step closer, blocking the exit from the alley. "I saw you working. You're probably tired. How about I give you a massage? Or help you carry your wallet? It's heavy, you know." He was clearly high and dangerous. Layla glanced around. The alley was empty. Screaming was useless. The music blared from the cafe kitchen, drowning out everything. She reached into her bag, pretending to reach for her wallet, feeling for the pepper spray she now carried with her. "Leave me alone," she said more firmly, trying to hide her panic. The man laughed and lunged at her, grabbing her hand. At that moment, footsteps from the street she'd come from suddenly stopped. 2 people entered the alley, Minho and his guard. They were walking, quietly conversing, and seemed to have accidentally turned into this alley as a shortcut. Upon seeing the scene, they stopped dead in their tracks. Everything froze. The attacker, seeing 2 men in dark, expensive clothes, Minho was wearing a suit again without a cap, with clearly unfriendly expressions, let go of Layla. His smirk faded. "Hey guys, it's okay. We're just talking." "Go away," Minho said. Just one word, spoken quietly, but in a tone that sent shivers down even Layla's spine. The attacker obeyed. He jumped to the side, muttered something unintelligible, and practically ran out of the alley on the other side. There were 3 left. Layla, leaning against the cold wall, breathing heavily. The guard, frozen half a step behind Minho, prepared for anything, and Minho himself, looking at Layla, with an inscrutable face. "You're stalking me!" This time it was a statement from her. Her voice trembled. "No," he replied, irritation finally breaking through in his tone. "I have business in the area. I'm trying to persuade the owner of the laundromat to sell me a share. He likes to meet at night." He paused, his gaze sliding over her work apron, still dirty from dishes. "What are you doing here at this hour? Giving interviews in dark alleys?" "I'm working," she blurted out, and suddenly anger, pure and clear, flooded her. Anger at him, at the whole situation, at herself. "I don't have security or a personal driver. I go out into dark alleys because I have no choice. Are you happy? You wanted to see me hit rock bottom? Here, look. Admire it. The guard tensed, but Minho raised his hand, stopping him. He came closer, not too close, but close enough for her to see the tired lines around his eyes. I didn't want to see anything, Layla. I wanted to forget. But apparently, fate has its own sense of humor. Do you carry pepper vodka? She nodded, not understanding. Not enough. In areas like this, with your history, it's not enough. It didn't sound like concern, but like a statement of fact, as if he were assessing the weakness of a business asset. What does that matter to you? She whispered. Nothing, he answered too quickly. Then he sighed. You're causing me problems. Even dead, you'd be less of a problem. And alive and working in my neighborhood. He didn't finish, waving his hand. Your life is your business. But if they find you in a ditch, it will attract attention. Unnecessary attention. To this cafe, to this neighborhood, to me. Always to me, the center of his universe. So order your men to take me to the other end of the world, or throw me off a bridge. Solve the problem, she cried. Minho looked at her with a long, hard gaze. Something moved in his eyes. Not pity, more like an acknowledgement of an uncomfortable complexity. It's too late for easy solutions, he said finally. He turned to the guard. Escort her home. Make sure she gets it, and give her an emergency number. My personal one. Layla and the guard gasped simultaneously. The guard's eyes widened. Boss, are you sure? I said it, Minho snapped. His tone brooked no argument. He looked at Layla again. This isn't protection. It's an alarm system to keep you from blowing up in front of me. Don't call unless you're pinned to the wall. And forget this number if you ever get out of here. And he was gone, his footsteps echoing loudly in the empty alley, until he disappeared into the darkness, leaving Layla in the care of a stunned guard. The security guard, a young man named Jin, reluctantly escorted her to the door of her apartment, silently. Before leaving, he slipped a plain business card into her hand, bearing only the name John, Minho, and a mobile phone number. Don't do anything stupid, he muttered, and disappeared. Layla entered her closet, locked the door tightly, and sat on the floor, leaning against it. She clutched a business card in her hand. The edge of the paper dug into her palm. She didn't cry. She simply sat and stared into the darkness, feeling the boundaries of her world, which she had spent 3 months trying to build, crumble once again. He had entered her life again, not as a stalker, but as an absurd, unwanted, reluctant guardian angel. And she hated him for it. And she hated herself for the fact that, deep down, in the darkest part of her, it made her feel a little calmer. It was the most bitter realization of all. She was still in his cage. Even when he opened the door, several days passed. The business card lay on Layla's kitchen table, like an unexploded bomb. She moved it from place to place, sometimes hiding it in a drawer, sometimes laying it out in plain sight again. That piece of cardboard with his name on it was both a shield and a humiliation. She didn't call. But her life had changed imperceptibly. Jean, the young security guard, now appeared periodically in her line of sight. Not like a shadow. He didn't follow her, but he seemed to accidentally find himself on the same tram in the morning, stopping at the same cafe for coffee when she was on her break. He never approached first, only nodding when their eyes met. It was a silent reminder. The alarm system is active. One evening, while Layla was mopping the floors after closing, Jean walked into the cafe. He was alone. He sat at a table by the window and waited for her to finish. Then he walked up to the counter. The boss told me to tell you, he said quietly, avoiding her eyes. That guy from the alley, he's no longer in the area. No problem. Layla froze, mop in hand. Out of the area? What does that mean? It means you have nothing to worry about, Jin answered flatly. And the boss told me to ask, do you need money? The question hung in the air like a slap. A hot wave of shame washed over her. No, she hissed. Tell him to stay out of my life. Jin nodded, as if expecting this answer. He thought so. Then one more thing. He says working at this cafe is a bad idea. They close too late. The area is bad. He knows a place. A tea shop in the center. The owner is an acquaintance of his. They need an assistant. Daytime hours better pay. It's not help, Jin added hastily, seeing her face darken. It's risk minimization. You're safe during the day. In a crowded place, less chance of incidents that would attract attention. He spoke in memorized phrases, conveying the message precisely. Minho wasn't offering her help, but optimization, transferring a problematic asset to a safer zone. And if I refuse? Layla asked. Jin shrugged. Your life is your business. I'm simply passing on information. Decide for yourself. He turned and left. Layla was left alone in the empty cafe, listening to the hum of the refrigerators. She hated Minho's logic. She hated the fact that he was right. Working here was a dead end and a risk, but accepting his optimization meant admitting that he still controlled her life, even from a distance. In the end, she went to that tea house. Not because of his words, she told herself, but because the opportunity was objectively better. The owner, an elegant elderly woman named Mrs. Kim, was stern but fair. She didn't ask unnecessary questions, only checking Layla's handling of china and her knowledge of tea varieties. The tea house was a quiet, bright place, with the scent of old books and dried herbs. There were no drunken customers or dirty alleys here. Minho seemed to keep his word. He didn't show up, he didn't call, but his invisible presence was felt. Sometimes Mrs. Kim would say, "Oh, an old friend stopped by today," and left a tip especially for the staff, and the amount was suspiciously large. Sometimes Jin would pop into the tea shop, ostensibly to buy a gift set for the boss. He'd bow silently to Layla, take the box, and leave. Layla tried to live this new, quiet life. She learned to distinguish oolongs from pu'ers, cleaned the room, and savored the silence. But inside, everything was seething. She felt like a puppet, moved to a more beautiful stage, but the strings were still in someone else's hands. The turning point came a month later. A group of teenagers ran out of the school across from the tea shop. They chased each other, and one of them, backing away, crashed into Layla. She was carrying a tray with an empty porcelain teapot and cups. The tray slipped from her hands. Everything shattered. The ringing was deafening. The entire tea room froze. Layla stood over the shards of an expensive antique tea set, her face white as chalk. She knew that this tea set was Mrs. Kim's pride, a family heirloom. Its value was exorbitant. Mrs. Kim approached, her face sad but not angry. "Don't worry, dear. It was an accident. I knew it would happen sooner or later. It's okay." But Layla saw her hands shaking. "It's okay." It was just kindness. Layla was devastated. She had nothing to cover even a small part of the damage. Panic, cold and sticky, clogged her throat. She felt poor, clumsy, humiliated. And in that moment of despair, before her brain could even process what she was doing, her fingers found her phone and that very business card in her pocket. She walked out into the backyard of the tea house, where the boxes were stored. She was shaking. She dialed the number. He answered on the second ring. His voice was even, businesslike. "Go ahead. It's Layla." There was a short pause on the other end. "An incident?" She bit her lip. His cold tone brought her back to reality. What was she doing? "I broke a teapot, a very expensive one, at Mrs. Kim's. I can't pay. Are you hurt?" The question caught her off guard. "No, just shards." "Okay, wait." He hung up. Layla leaned against the brick wall, feeling a new wave of shame wash over her. She'd done exactly what she'd sworn never to do. She'd pressed the alarm. 20 minutes later, it wasn't his luxury car that pulled up to the tea shop, but a simple gray sedan. It wasn't Jin who got out, but an older man in glasses, apparently an accountant. He entered, spoke politely to Mrs. Kim, inspected the damage, pulled out a thick envelope, and handed it to her. Mrs. Kim initially refused, but the man gently insisted. Then he approached Layla. "Miss, everything is sorted. Don't worry. Mr. Zhang asked me to tell you, this is a one-time insurance service. Don't repeat it. Have a nice day." And he left. Everything was decided in 10 minutes. Without emotion, without reproaches, without talking to her. Simply eliminated. That evening, as Layla was closing the tea shop, her phone vibrated. An SMS from an unfamiliar number had arrived. "The insurance claim has been closed. Jin's number, 000xxx. Contact him for household matters. Delete this number. Do not call. Do not text." It was him. Brief, clear voyage, without goodbyes. He'd shut himself off again. He'd fulfilled his alarm function and cut her off. He'd given her a safer intermediary, Jeannie, and ordered her to erase himself from the phone's memory, like a used-up code. Layla stood on the nearly empty street. A streetlight flickered overhead. She stared at the message, and a strange, empty calm washed over her. He didn't want to be her savior. He wanted to be the dispatcher who forwarded the call. And in a twisted way, that was more honest. There was no pretense of concern. There was only the pure, cold logic of control. She slowly followed the order, deleted the number, saved Jin's. She raised her head and walked toward the subway station. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't calm either. She felt empty, as if all her feelings, hatred, shame, fear, even bitterness, had finally been processed into indifference. He had transformed their complex, tormented relationship into a simple risk management scheme. And perhaps that was the only possible truth between them. She walked, her footsteps echoing in the silence of the night. She was free from his obsessive presence. But this freedom was like a quiet, sterile room, where a guard named Jin still stood guard outside the door. And the key to this room, she realized, no longer belonged to Minho. It belonged to her. And that was the most terrifying thing, because she didn't know why she needed this key, or where this door led now.